What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host, Carrie.
What's up?
We may or may not get Micah before the end of the show. He made the particularly unwise decision to feed his infant child a cupcake for their birthday before bed, which was not a great idea. So he's dealing with that right now. Like I said, he might come in hot in a little bit here. It's a light week though. Again, we are still in the Summer Game Fest malaise. Not a lot of news going on. The Elden Ring DLC is the talk of the town right now. We'll talk about that in a little bit and some of the controversy, and I'll use that term loosely, that's ginned up around that. But also last week was Steam Next Fest, and as I am wont to do during the Next Fest, I partook in many demos. Carrie even partook in a demo as well.
I somehow found the time. But it's for a game that I've been following for a hot second, so I am excited to talk about it.
Yes. So I figured we'll start off the show by me talking about the games that caught my eye during the Next Fest. I usually try to play a good amount of games whenever the Next Fest comes around because I'm always looking for new indie shit. The first one that really did catch my eye is a game called Wild Bastards. This is a spiritual sequel to a game that came out several years back called Void Bastards, which we've talked about on the show before. I know Terrence played a lot of Void Bastards and liked it a lot. I played a little bit. Whereas Void Bastards was a first-person stealth action roguelite, this one is just a straight-up FPS, basically. And it's kind of cool. You have a crew of Western themed like robots and shit like that that go through these different planets. It's set in space, just like Void Bastards was. And what happens is, as you move to each planet, which is on a forked path style grid that you see in a lot of roguelikes, you actually will go onto a smaller map. That's actually the planet's surface, and that's where you kind of go and you get new items and you find new characters and upgrades and have like little mini fights and stuff like that. And what's interesting is that you actually split your guys up into different posses. So every posse can only have 2 of your heroes in it, and I think you can take down something like 4 to 6. Obviously, it's a little bit more limited in the demo that they had out. And when you go into these little instances, and the action sequences are very quick. Like, it's like go into this area and kill 10 enemies basically, and then you just go through these small maps and hunt them down. But each character has distinct abilities that they can use, kind of like a hero shooter in that sense, which is pretty neat. You can swap between them freely, so you can kind of take advantage of their powers based on the situation. If a character dies, you can obviously swap right back to the other one. And there are the enemy faction is kind of chasing you through the map. So like once you land on a planet, you have a couple turns before the enemies, like the big bads, will land and start chasing you around the map, kind of like Hammer Brothers on Super Mario 3 map style, is kind of sort of way. So this one's neat. Like I said, I liked but didn't love Void Bastards. I wanted something more action oriented, and so far Wild Bastards seems much more action oriented than Void Bastards was, and it's got that same like humor and style and all that jazz. So that looks pretty cool. For Balatro fans, or actually it's Balatro, as I've come to find out it's actually pronounced. The new digital crack might be coming soon. There's a game called Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers that's coming out. It's basically Balatro, but with blackjack instead of poker, where when you start off, you pick a deck of cards that are all one suit, and each suit has different abilities associated with it. So like heart, if you play hearts, they'll heal you. If you play spades, they deal damage to the opponent, stuff like that. And when you get a set of cards, like you get ace through king in just that suit. That's kind of like your starting deck. And you're playing blackjack one-on-one against different enemies that you find along the way. It's more of a choose your own adventure style game as well. And you're trying to, like blackjack is, get as close to 21 as you can. without busting. And if you beat your opponent's hand, you deal damage to them in the difference in the hands. So like if you get a 20 and they get a 17, then you deal them 3 damage. But if they bust, you deal the full amount of your hand. So like if I get a 21 and you bust, then I would deal you 21 points of damage, and you're trying to defeat opponents in turn while staying alive yourself. But then the roguelike aspect comes into play, where you get like these broken cards that like modify your deck or have special abilities that you can add, including like regular cards, but it's like, you know, like a 13 of a certain suit you can get, or cards that are themed after other popular card-based roguelike games. Like there's Slay the Spire references, there's Balatro references, like all that kind of shit in there. I'm totally down with this. Very much looking forward to this when it comes out. It does have kind of like a low res art style to it, so if that's not your jam, then you may not like this. But I am gonna probably dig this game quite a bit when it comes out into full release. So that is Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers. Carrie, you played Fields of Mystria.
I sure did. Fields of Mystria is a, I guess you would call it like a Harvest Moon style game. It's a farm sim, but it's more set in like a fantasy world. So what it really is, in my mind, is Rune Factory getting a Stardew Valley kind of treatment, where it's more pixel art, but it's being made with a lot of passion. So Fields of Mystria, it comes out in August. I have been following the Fields of Mystria Twitter account for like the last 3 or 4 years as they've been working on it. So it's like I've been seeing all of these character arts and previews and whatnot, and to finally be able to have this game in like a playable state was really exciting for me, accordingly. And it's really cute. It's pretty much, if you have played Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons or Rune Factory, you know exactly what you're getting into with this. This is very much just like more of a fantasy flavored farm sim. So again, it's closer to Rune Factory, which again, Stardew Valley was created in the first place because Concerned Ape, Eric Barone, was like sick of mediocre Harvest Moon games. Because basically he said, and I think he's absolutely right, that Harvest Moon as a series stopped being any good basically after the PS1 era. I would say maybe PS2, GameCube era if I'm being generous, but in a lot of cases, a lot of those games are just fucking mid. So instead, he made the sort of Harvest Moon game that he wanted to play, and that resulted in Stardew Valley, which for the last 8 years has been sort of like the de facto king of farm sims, because it gets everything right that people like about those games. And I feel like Fields of Mystria is taking the same sort of approach, but to Rune Factory, which also hasn't been very good in probably 12 years now, because Rune Factory 4 was really good. 3 and 4 are both good games. And then Rune Factory 5 is just dog shit. And instead they've put out sort of janky ports of 3 and 4 in the meantime as well. So I'm hoping that we get more of these sort of like fan-made essentially games that get back to what made Rune Factory and Harvest Moon kind of special in the first place when those games were first coming out, before Marvelous Entertainment decided to basically like churn out mediocre garbage. So yeah, it's very pastel, but like there's a lot of very attractive anime boys and girls in town that you can obviously, woo over the course of the game. But there's your farming, there's fishing, there's exploration, there's foraging, there's combat down in the mines. It has enough different things going on. It has like bug catching, where like none of the other, like Harvest Moon never had bug catching. Stardew Valley doesn't even have bug catching. So there's enough different going on with Fields of Mystria to help it sort of stand out. I love like the color palette that they go with. It's a little more pastel rather than the very vibrant colors of Stardew Valley. But No, I'm already a fan. You basically got to play like the first 3 days of spring,
Hmm.
and they gave you some like extra stuff for the demo so that you wouldn't have to worry about like losing all of your stamina and passing out and not being able to really enjoy the game to its fullest for the short amount of time that you are able to play it. So yeah, it was enough of a taste of Fields of Mystria for me to know that like I'm gonna be getting that game when it comes out. So I'm very excited for that. Again, I've been following the development for years now. So to finally see this game, it's done, like it's coming out. So really stoked for that dev team, and looking forward to providing a full review of the game sometime in August after I've had a chance to sit down with the full thing.
All right. Two more from me. So there's a game called The Operator that's coming out. This is a narrative adventure game where you are assuming the role of an FBI analyst, essentially, like a rookie. And the game UI is basically like your FBI terminal that you go to work and log into every day. And essentially, like you'll get calls that come in. The game's like fully voice acted, where they pass. FBI agents in the field will call you and they need information. They need you to look into like the databases that you have access to and stuff like that to try to figure out information that they need or help solve the crimes that they are coming across. Like in the demo, the first crime that you do, there's a dude that gets murdered in a bar. Like this dude, like an unknown assailant, pulls up to the bar and just shoots him and walks out. And there's surveillance footage of it happening, so you can see like the car pull up and the dude like walks in and shoots the guy. And so the way you solved it is you had to like use the surveillance video to zoom in on the license plate, and then once you had the license plate, you could search like the motor vehicle records and find out who the car is registered to, and it's kind of that kind of shit. I love detective stuff. This seems like it's going to be right up my alley. I actually like like when I played the demo, it seemed like that answer seemed too obvious. So I was like looking into like other avenues of possible suspicion, and my boss, who was like overseeing me because this was like a training out exercise, was just like yeah, stop looking at that other evidence. Like that's just it's a red herring. Like just be smart about this. I'm like, oh, is it really just this simple? Oh, it is. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be twists and turns as the game goes along, but it looks pretty cool. So that's The Operator. And the last one is a game that I recognize is definitely not my jam personally, but I think this game is going to blow up across, especially like Twitch and stuff like that. This is I Am Your Beast. This is a first-person action combat game where you play in short little bursts. Like the stages are really tiny. You're like this ex special forces like operative guy. There's a whole narrative around the story, but the gameplay is basically you are in these areas and you have to kill like 8 or 9 agents that are in the area and then escape the place within like 90 seconds basically.
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of the thing. So it's very precision oriented, and what's cool is that you can use stuff in the environment to help you. So like one of the first stages that you come across, like you find a knife that's on the ground. So you pick up the knife, you use the knife, you throw it at the first guy, that kills him. You like his gun is on the ground. You pick up his gun, you shoot the next 2 guys, you shoot them. The gun's out of bullets, so you just throw it at the third guy. It knocks him out. Then you go over there and just fucking and like stomp their face in, that kind of stuff. So it's like kind of like that. When I was watching or when I was playing the game, and when I was watching other people play it, it reminded me a lot of this game Neon White that came out a couple of years ago that became like a speed run sensation game, and that's exactly what this is going to be. This has the same itch where, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to tackle these levels, and people are going to be competing to do them as fast as possible. Of course, they give you a score at the end of the level based on how quick you did it and all that jazz. So I'm looking forward to watching other people play I Am Your Beast, but I'm not going to be someone who's partaking, because like getting into like speedrun shit and that sort of stuff is not at all my jam. So
Yeah.
but a lot of other people are going to really like this game. So
That's always kind of fun, though. It's like when you try something and you understand, like, this isn't for me, but people are gonna love this.
well, like I said, with Neon White, like I kind of fell into watching that online a bit, because it was there's something fun about watching people kind of like dissect these levels in such a way to get every, like, as someone who plays racing games a lot, like, I really appreciate like doing, like, finding these optimal ways to just cut down, you know, 3/10, 2/10 of a second from how fast you're doing something. So I appreciate that. I don't have the skill to do it myself. And again, like, this is the kind of speedrunning that I really like, where it's not like, you know, I don't really dig like the glitched speedruns that you see for a lot of games where people are like, you know, clipping through the environment to find paths to like later levels and stuff like that. Like, it's cool that people discovered that. To me, that's not the spirit of speedrunning. Like, you're not actually playing the game the way the game's intended to be played.
I'm going to push back on that. I think the spirit of speedrunning varies, right?
Yeah.
I think, you know, you have your 100% runs, right? Like, you have your, I have mastered this game in this way, in so much that I have mastered this game, but I'm staying within the bounds of the game. And I think that's valid. But I think the glitch speed runs, I think taking advantage of every weird piece of code to be able to like rewrite the random number generator in your favor, I think that is equally as valid, because that also requires a very high level of understanding of how that game functions.
Yeah.
That your casual player is never going to get.
I don't know. The only ones where I don't mind watching them as much are like the Mario 64 glitch runs that take like 8 minutes.
Those glitch runs are usually really funny too.
I just find it very funny, like backwards jumping up the endless stairs, and somehow that glitches through it. The most impressive thing about Mario 64 speedrunners is how they are able to so quickly navigate the Bowser stages, which they do with just like incredible precision. Whereas me, I'm like tiptoeing through, just making sure that I land every jump and stuff like that. So that's a world I could never hope to be in, but I will admire from afar for sure. So that is Next Fest. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back with what limited news we have this week. So stay tuned. So the big news around the world in gaming this week is the new Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Did release to high critical acclaim. I think I've heard it said it is the highest rated downloadable content ever. I think it has a 95 on Metacritic right now, which is mighty impressive. I've heard it's really good, but some players don't seem to be responding in quite the same way. Currently, if you look on Steam, the DLC itself has a user score of mixed, meaning that only about 60% of the reviews for the DLC are positive. And if you go down and check out the negative reviews, the reason that people are giving this a thumbs down is because it's too hard. Apparently, I guess we should have expected this, because Elden Ring had the widest reach of any From Software game, and so we have so many new people playing From Software games for the first time, that when they get the DLC, they might not realize that From Software DLCs traditionally are even more difficult than the base game that they are based on.
Yeah, look, this is what we in the business like to call fucking around and finding out. Yeah, look, Elden Ring was my first Soulsborne experience, and I think that's the key, right? Is that you have a lot of people who, like myself, have put, 150, 200 hours into Elden Ring and really liked Elden Ring. And it was hard, sure, but it was accessible in how it was hard still. And then they get to the DLC and they get mollywopped into the next election cycle and are upset about it. But it basically boils down to trying to reset your expectations. The other thing that this article that we're looking at makes note of is that in order to even access the DLC, you have to beat both Radahn and Mohg. And Mohg in particular is a son of a bitch.
And an optional boss.
Yeah, and an optional boss otherwise. So you have a lot of people who have, I'm sure, otherwise beaten the game and considered, oh, well, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do this. And then they realize they have to go beat Mohg, which they may not have done. And then they get to the second phase of Mohg and he beats your ass wholesale. But yeah, Mohg's tough. Now, we were talking offline before the show. My save file is absolutely primed for the DLC because I beat Radahn. And I actually beat Mohg. But I'm not jumping into the DLC because I want to be kind to myself, but also I haven't played Elden Ring since February of last year. And so I would have to relearn the entire game at this
Mhm.
point
Yeah.
and remember how things work before I jump right in. I got stuck on Elden Ring at Malekith. I got to Malekith, got my ass beat into next Tuesday, and decided that was enough for me, so I stopped at
I mean, it's
Malekith.
pretty
So
that's pretty good
if
though.
anyone,
Isn't
well, here's
Malekith like the boss before the end stage of the game essentially?
yeah, it's the boss before I think the final area of the game. So he's not optional, but he's
Hmm.
really fucking hard. At least he was hard in a way that like really like felt discouraging. Sometimes you get into a boss and it's hard, but like you can at least get him down like 50%. Malekith like beat me so severely that like I didn't do much damage on him and he beat my ass quick. And I was just like, I'm good, I'm done. Solid. It's okay. But also, if anyone listening to this wants to throw down a summon sign outside of Malekith, I play on PC. So if you want to baby me through the Malekith fight, that would be great. Thanks
Yeah.
in advance. But yeah, of course, Shadow of the Erdtree it's a massive expansion. I'm also hearing people complain about the price, but then like you look at the world map and it's like it's basically Elden Ring 2.
Yeah, it's apparently there's a good like 50 hours of content in
Yeah.
the expansion, which is like a whole nother game basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point, the map is I think like
It's like
2/3
two
the
thirds the
size
size
of
of
the
the
lands
regular
between.
map.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, obviously a lot to do, and I feel like you're gonna probably hit, the 20 or 30 hour mark without even doing any of like the side content present in the
yeah.
DLC. So I'm not entirely surprised that the most mainstream Soulsborne game is getting mixed reviews on the DLC because people thought it was gonna be easy, and they are very wrong.
And
Welcome to Soulsborne.
Bandai Namco's response was basically get good. They suggest that players level up your Erdtree blessing. So in the DLC, apparently there's a separate like leveling system where you get
Mhm.
these Erdtree shards that have that help you in the Shadow Realm in the DLC. So yeah, like use the leveling stuff that's in the game. I totally get it. It does the same thing where it gives you like the hard to fight world boss right in front of the starting area that you go and get beat up by a little bit and maybe realize, hey, I'm not supposed to fight this giant fire cauldron thing right away. Maybe I'll level up a little bit and come back. But yeah, it is amusing to me that people are responding with this kind of a backlash as well. That's not the only reason. Apparently, there are some. It's not running the best on PC right now, which I guess will be fixed. So I can understand that being a reason that people are a little down on the first thing of the expansion. But yeah, people mad because the game hard. And again, like so many people, I feel like have their pride playing from games. Like they feel like that they have to play the games a certain way instead of actually like using the tools that the game provides you. Like if the game gave you summons, like use the summons. Like if you want to 1v1 everything, like that's fine, but expect to spend 4 hours on a boss, getting the patterns down and executing and stuff like that. Or you can use a mimic tier and make your life a little easier. Or like in the fight against Moog, you can use the like the bangle thing that works against him and Margit to put his ass on the ground for a few seconds. So, or like I said, run your head against a brick wall constantly. So
Look, you're either gonna get through it or you won't.
yep. In perhaps the least surprising news I've ever seen, and again, we must frame this with allegedly, because we don't have any evidence one way or the other about this, but
apparently some people do.
well, allegedly, Dr. Disrespect, notable content creator and streamer, who is banned from Twitch, by the way.
Yeah, he was banned from Twitch a couple years ago.
Yes. For
Yes.
filming people in a bathroom
Hmm.
on a Twitch stream, basically.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's this guy.
Or
And
that's what we thought was part of it. I
yeah,
imagine that was still part of it. But apparently a former Twitch employee has shared new allegations. Cody Connors, a few days ago, um, said that he got banned because he was caught sexting a minor in the Whisper function when that was still a thing, trying to meet up with her at TwitchCon. The powers that be could read it in plain text, case closed. That was swift and banned. Um, so other folks have weighed in on this at this point. I mean, here's the thing. As the thing was going on, there were sort of credible insiders that were saying that, like, you know, I've been told from sources the reason why Dr. Disrespect has been banned, but due to the importance and sensitivity around the subject, I have refrained from going in on it because I don't feel comfortable with it currently.
yeah.
There's basically a lot of folks coming out and being like, this is what I meant when I said this a few years ago.
Well,
Um,
I was listening to Game S Mornings, and Jeff Grubb was like, I don't know one way or the other. He's like, but seems awful coincidental that a lot of this stuff is coming out 5 years later, and 5 years is typically how long most non-disclosure agreements last. So
yeah.
they're like, not saying that that's the reason why, but it sure is a coincidence.
Probably something to do with it. Yeah, basically, a lot of the other thing that is so far happened as part of the fallout is that he co-founded a gaming studio in 2021 called Midnight Society, and they have now gotten rid of his ass as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he founded
his
he
own
founded
game
that.
studio that he helped found is like, yeah, we don't want anything to do with this guy anymore.
No. They said we are terminating our relationship with Bream, that's his real last name, immediately. While these facts are difficult to hear and even more difficult to accept, it's our duty to act with dignity on behalf of all individuals involved, especially the 55 developers and families we have employed along with our community of players. Because I'm sure they're like, fuck, this is a PR nightmare. You gotta go.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, unsurprising that a guy whose whole internet persona is that he's an asshole is an asshole offline too. Wonder if that had any reason to him being so good at that online, right? But yeah, that dude sucks. He's always sucked, and I'm glad we have more innate details as to how specifically he sucks.
I'm sure there's a cavalcade of people who really care about ethics and gaming journalism who are ready to circle the wagons around Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah, right.
Don't sell him short. There's a whole cavalcade of as me and Jay like to joke, people who know the age of consent in every state in this country, ready to line up for Dr. D. So more to come here. Again, all of this is alleged. Nothing has been proven, but again, where there's smoke, there's often a big old fire raising underneath that. But again, not at all surprising. As Carrie said, Dr. Shruk has always sucked. And then a brief bad news follow-up from last week. We talked about how Paradox Games shut down their Sims competitor 3 days into early access, just completely canceled the game. We said on the show, we hope that this means that the studio does not get closed. Literally, as we were recording the episode, the news was coming out that Paradox Interactive did indeed close the Life by You studio, which was called Paradox Tectonic, which was a 24-person team that worked on that game. So, sucks. I don't think any of us are surprised that happened once the game got canceled. But I hope that those people do find and land on their feet, find something else in the industry that they can do. We will take one more quick break, and then we'll be back with game impressions from me, and then the post office. So stay tuned. So, Carrie, I am back in full sicko mode because I started playing Endless Space 2.
I like how you called this your sicko mode.
I mean,
your sicko mode would be one of your deck building.
No,
games,
that's not sicko mode because I just play those incessantly. I'm playing Endless Space 2, and I'm in the middle of my first game, like my first full campaign of it, and I'm a third the way through the possible number of turns that the
Okay.
game can contain, and there's 9 hours on the clock so far. So we are back, folks. It is time. Endless Space 2 is a 4X grand strategy game set in space, so think Civ, but in the stars, basically, where you take control of a faction or empire, trying to spread your influence throughout the galaxy that you find yourself in over the other factions that are also out there through varying means of success, be it science, research, diplomacy, economics, conquest, you name it, it's in there. This has a lot of the trappings that you would expect from really any 4X game. As you explore different systems, so it's Civ's kind of the closest allegory for me. So I'm probably going to compare it mostly to that. So you have kind of these all the different planetary systems that you can explore are set on these constellations, which are essentially like the continents in Civ. And then you have to develop technology that lets you actually fly ships through the warp, which is the non-charted routes. And that's how you can discover the other constellations that are further out throughout the galaxy. Of course, traveling across those is slower than moving across these star lanes, which are very fast. Every system that you find will have between like 2 to 5 planets or moons in the system. Some of them can be colonized right away, and some of them cannot be. You had to develop technology in order to colonize planets that are not really conducive to your species' former way of life. And of course, all the planets will provide you with different levels of food or resources or industry or science or things of that nature. There's also a slew of different resources in the game, both from a strategic and from a luxury standpoint, which you can either use to help develop your civilization or sell in a marketplace. They have a full, commodities market in the game where prices will, up or down as they go. The two things that I really like about the game are the way that your navy is handled, your fleets, and the different events that they have that go along. So the events I'll kind of cover first. As you go throughout the game, every few turns, there's tons of different events that will pop up. There's also kind of a campaign storylines for the different factions that you'll come across that are kind of unique to those factions, and then just random events that pop up where it's like, hey, if you can complete this quest in a certain number of turns, then you'll get this bonus, or you're competing with the other factions to be the first in the galaxy to achieve this certain thing. Those are nice because they offer a little bit of a mix-up in play. They give you some other things that you can do. You also have to kind of prioritize what events you want to chase versus which ones you kind of want to ignore. And then the way that you build up your fleets is pretty nifty as well, because since everything's ship-based, not only can you research different types of ships, but you can also build your own, and you can also edit the existing ships that are in the game, because as you unlock techs, you'll unlock different modules that are basically pieces that you can put on the different ships. So you can kind of, customize your ship to be, more of a diplomatic ship that is just, just has a lot of defensive stuff, or like an all attack ship, but you can balance between ballistic or energy weapons and defending against the same way. And when you get into fights, they have a full tactical battle screen where you can pick from a deck of tactics that your civilization has access to. And you, based on how your fleet is constructed, you could say, all right, I want to use this tactic that has these ships hang out, at medium range, and these ships will go up close. And it just kind of adds a really interesting strategic layer to everything, because you can really work hard to customize your fleets that you have around the things that they're really good at. So it just adds a little bit of a layered dimension to combat that you would normally get in these games, where it's just like, oh, unit X versus unit Y, and there's a rock paper scissors aspect, and you kind of bang heads. The things I don't like about it are the game is very obtuse. Like, these games are systems heavy in general. Endless Space 2 is even more systems heavy than your average grand strategy game. And the tutorials are really bad. Like, they really don't explain how to do stuff very well, or why it's important. There's a whole, a module in the game where, you can hack other civilizations, right? And they can hack you. And so, when you hack somebody, your sending like a hacking trace through this line of planets or line of systems, and if you successfully breach them, you will like you can open like a back door so that you can like initiate hacking operations from that planet, or you can steal resources from them, or like cause chaos in their political system and stuff like that. And it's not really clear like how does this work when I'm getting hacked. Like, what am I doing to stop it? It's just not explained well. It feels kind of half baked. And like the other day, or when I was playing yesterday, my empire was such that I don't know. I guess I did something that pissed off a lot of the people, and then all of a sudden I get this message that pops up like, oh, like your government is in anarchy, and you're gonna become a dictatorship next turn, and it's not at all clear like why did this happen? What could I have done to stop it? Like, was I just not paying attention to one of the cavalcade of different, like meters that I need to look at to see like if my people are happy or sad, and why do they all of a sudden flip out on me? Like, why isn't there kind of like a warning to this happening? So that was a little confusing. So I'm interested in Endless Space 2 because it does do the one thing that these games have to do to be good, and that's like one more turn. I can't tell like Saturday night, it was 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, all right, one more turn, and then we'll go to bed. And then 90 minutes later, I'm just like, all right, now I really have to go to fucking bed so it has that. So I'm intrigued. I just wish the game did a better job at kind of explaining what was going on. So I would say that if you've been interested in like a grand strategy game, I would not recommend this be your first. Like, Civilization still is kind of like the best onboarding one of these, in my opinion. But I also really like fucking space. So I really want to try this out. So I'll give this more of a chance. Probably play another game or two and see if it jives with me. And we'll see what happens. So, but yeah, Endless Space 2, I'm intrigued. But there's a lot fucking going on in this game for sure.
Sick. I remember the one like new sort of game that I've played a little bit of. Yeah. Sky, Children of Light, which is by the same developers behind Journey and Flow, That Game Company. One of my friends is really into it, and so it's a very basically imagine Journey, but as like a way more social game rather than you just like playing with someone else and you learn who they were in the credits. This is like active, ongoing. You can chat with people in there with a live chat function. It's still very much like very sort of artsy, and you fly around and you go into different environments and you help spirits find themselves and whatnot. It's all really cute, low stakes stuff. It's nice. It's a very chill time. It's a game where it's designed as a social game. So, playing it alone is one thing, and you can certainly play through the whole thing alone if you want. But it's a fun, chill time with friends, and it's free. It's completely free on Steam. So worth checking out if you are someone who really enjoyed Journey and maybe want a similar experience. It's completely free. They do have microtransactions for things like cosmetics and whatnot for your character, but nothing that impacts the gameplay. So yeah, I have enjoyed that. I'm sure I will continue to enjoy that.
Lovely. I'll have to let my wife know about that because she really likes their output of games. So that takes us to the Dense Pixels post office. As usual, you can submit us questions by joining our Discord at densepixels.com/fans, which we will answer on the show. We'll start with Johnny, who says, thoughts on Expedition 33 and turn-based RPGs coming to light in recent years.
It took me a minute to find what game he was talking about. So it's the full...
Yeah, this is the game that announced during the Xbox showcase.
Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which comes out next year. It's interesting that they went turn-based with it, mostly because it's so rare to see a game with such Western, European design sensibilities about it be fully turn-based. I feel like we typically get that out of our Japanese game devs. But it's cool. I'm into it. It's not something I'm going to buy day one. It comes out sometime next year, but it's I like a turn-based game. I've always liked turn-based games. I like games where I have the ability to think about my next move before I necessarily make it. But I do feel like you've maybe seen a bit of a return to popularity, mainstream popularity for turn-based RPGs. Persona 5, I think, has a lot to do with that. But obviously, turn-based RPGs never went anywhere. They've always been around. You've always had your Pokemons, which is a turn-based RPG at its core, right? Stuff like that. So yeah, we've been seeing a lot of them recently. We've been seeing a lot of big remakes of older ones recently, which I think is great because now you have stuff like, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door and Super Mario RPG, and soon enough, Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, being introduced to a new generation of folks who did not grow up playing those games. So I'm all about it. So
yeah, I think not the problem, but like, I don't think we really explored the full breadth of what you can do with the turn-based battle system before the shift started to really go towards action, and that's the only reason why is because companies like Square shifted towards action combat because they thought they would placate more to Western audiences, and we saw the ultimate result of that with Final Fantasy 16 earlier or last year. But I think that what you're finding companies doing now is you're finding companies that are finding interesting ways to manipulate turn-based systems, right? It's not just like, static select commands. Back in the mid 90s, for all you youngins, like the most revolution we had in a turn-based system was the active time battle system, where enemies could do stuff while you were selecting your actions, so you had to kind of move quickly through it. Now,
right.
We see stuff like initiative tracks, which is interesting. We see like the Persona system, the one more mechanic.
I'm gonna hold you on that because that's the one more in Persona is literally just the press turn system, which has been around in Shin Megami Tensei since the 90s.
Yeah, but nobody knew it until Persona 5.
Right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I understand that a good acid jazz soundtrack can do a lot for a series, but like press turn has been around forever. But no, it's like you have these sort of things and like I do think a lot of some really interesting turn-based mechanics have been around for a couple decades at this point. I think of the game Radiant Historia, where your enemies are present on a grid, and you can by doing different moves, you can sort of knock them into each other or knock them into different parts of the grid, to then combo to stack enemies on top of each other and then do big combo attacks to hit multiple things at once, that sort of thing. I think that's really fun. I think the way that Octopath Traveler and even the Bravely series do these sort of like, you can sort of like stockpile turns to then do bigger damage later, or break through enemy weaknesses and that sort of deal. Huge fan of that stuff. But we've been getting that for a while, but it hasn't really been until, let's say, the last 5 or 6 years in the grand scheme of things, that some of these sort of ideas are starting to hit more mainstream titles, or I guess really that the mainstream is picking up on good games that were sort of niche beforehand. So turn-based RPGs, I think when people think of them, they maybe think of like, old school Final Fantasy or something like that, and they think that it's sort of like a dated kind of thing. But I like looking at the trailer for Expedition 33, and I like looking at other games that have come out recently that are doing turn-based combat in a way that still feels like really fresh and sort of is able to keep you on your toes.
He also asks, Johnny does, thoughts on the Elden Ring DLC review bombing, but in relation to that, what games have you stopped playing because you thought they were too hard?
I mean, I stopped playing Elden Ring because Malekith beat my ass.
I don't think that, but like you made it to like that point.
I did. Sure. Look, I stopped at one boss because I was feeling sour, but ultimately I still played like 85 hours of that game. Like I still played most of that game. I still beat, Millennia. Like still did all of it, right? I don't know about like other games where it was like I played it for like 2 hours and just thought this is too hard. Honestly, if I'm being honest, Pizza Tower is one of those for
Yeah.
me. Pizza Tower is really hard. I couldn't really get the hang of the controls. It's like I got past the first few levels and then like fucking pizza time would kick in and I just couldn't make it out. So I would say probably Pizza Tower. I think I only played like 4 or 5 hours of that game before determining it was too hard and then uninstalling.
Mine is specifically because I have not a love-hate relationship, but like I don't have a lot of patience for precision platformers.
Okay, yeah, no, valid.
So like Celeste was that one for me where like I played through the first few like collection of stages and it just got to a point where I was just having to work way too hard and I was just like I don't feel like doing all this. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing if it's like a Metroidvania where those areas are there to break up the combat sections, and they're not too terribly difficult. Like I'm not playing Hollow Knight and doing like Path Pain or anything like that. Like that's not really my fucking jam. But that's an option. Like for Celeste, like that is the game. So I'm just like I got to the point where this game I was like I'm just fucking I don't feel like doing this. So I put it down. I haven't really gone back to it. So. Anthony says, love Ghost of Tsushima, finished it for the first time last week. This is the kind of game that I like. I play on easy because I suck. What games do you people, and I do mean you people, recommend? Well, it's kind of a broad question, so I will answer.
I'm assuming he means along the lines of like an action adventure, Ghost of Tsushima. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima is a streamlined version. Of a lot of the like later Assassin's Creed games. So I would say that if you enjoyed that, but you enjoy a lot more map vomit than Ghost of Tsushima gave you, that you can definitely kick Assassin's Creed down on easy mode and kind of get a good story, and roll through some fun combat as well. And maybe even wait for Shadows to come out later this year, because that's going to be right in line with that as well. So
I'll just say, listen to Brad. I don't really have enough of a history of playing action adventure like that outside of like maybe the Spider-Man games. So I guess I'll say if you haven't played Spider-Man, play Spider-Man.
Yeah. I think the Spider-Man's a good recommendation. I think the Horizon games also have a difficulty slider and they'll kind of give you a lot of the same experience that something like Ghost would as well. So and the Horizon games will have more intricate combat, which Ghost of Tsushima has as well. So maybe that might be something to look forward to there. Mad Coco G says, was Revolution X ahead of its time or a waste of time? I had the chance to buy a sealed Saturn copy for $10 at a toy show, but I figured I could walk around and come back and get it. Yeah, somebody beat me to it.
Here's the thing. Anytime you see any Sega Saturn game sealed for $10, just fucking buy it. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what game it is. But I had to remind myself what Revolution X was.
You might be too young for Revolution.
I'm not too young. I've played enough games.
So for any listeners under the age of 30,
if you're less than 30, you wouldn't know what this is.
Yeah, for any listeners under the age of 30, Revolution X was a on rails arcade shooter. Think of like Time Crisis. But what was notable about the game is it starred the band Aerosmith, and it was about repelling an alien invasion from invading the Earth. Yeah, they kidnapped Aerosmith and defeating them through the power of rock and roll. That was the premise.
Huge fan.
Yeah, huge Revolution X. Was it ahead of its time?
Chungus-headed shit.
No, this game was absolutely the 90s. First of all, you might argue that it might have been past its time because it started Aerosmith in like the mid 90s.
Here's the thing. It started Aerosmith in the 90s, but before the movie Armageddon came out and Aerosmith had their resurgence and then was put on like Disney's Rock and Roller Coaster down in Florida. So it was a weird time for Aerosmith, which is probably why they agreed to do this game, because it meant that they felt like they could probably make some money out of this in a time where they were not otherwise having much in the way of hits. Yeah, so it was mostly an arcade game, but they put it on like Super Nintendo, Saturn, Genesis, and PlayStation.
Yes.
Um, so you know, uh,
Well, here's the other thing though, is that
it's the quality you would expect from Midway arcade game from 1994 starring Aerosmith.
oh, it definitely had pre-rendered like full motion video characters in it. You better believe that.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that was par for the course for the Midway game. But here's the thing though, is I playing it on a console, I would not have the same nostalgia for the game, because the whole thing that was cool about the game is when you played it on an arcade cabinet, it actually had like a mounted like gun that had like kickback and stuff like that, and the little button on the sides that shot like the fucking.
The arcade version was solid. All of the console versions of that game are dog shit.
Yeah,
but like, here's the thing. I want to say I played that game when I was like 7 or 8 years old in a fucking like restaurant somewhere. I want to say I played it at like a Jerry's Subs and Pizza in Rockville, Maryland when I was 8. And I mostly just remember it because it had Aerosmith in it. But yeah, I don't know. Shooting aliens and rescuing.
I mean,
Aerosmith,
it had one of the best. What's the mode they call it? Like attract mode. Any arcade cabinet, because like the attract mode for the game, if you were walking by the cabinet in an arcade, was literally just the opening riff from
Walk This Way.
No, not from Walk This Way, from Sweet Emotion. Just on fucking loop constantly as you were walking by.
Because here's the thing, because they had all the rights to the music, the soundtrack was just all Aerosmith stuff.
Oh my god!
I have to go back and look up. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now. Apparently, there was like a lo-fi Muzak version of the song "Love in an Elevator," where which plays when you're in an elevator at one point. So like, I wanna listen to what the fuck that sounds like. I really gotta listen to like Sega Saturn renditions of Aerosmith tunes. There's no way to get any of that.
We're gonna have to. Mike is gonna have to chime in the Discord his thoughts, because I know Micah played Revolution X in the arcades back in the day for sure. If you've never seen or heard of Revolution X, do yourself a favor, go on YouTube and just find some.
Just look that
videos.
Shit up. Again, but to answer the original question, was it ahead of its time or a waste of time? Largely a waste of time on consoles, but a fun time in the arcade.
I mean, look, I enjoyed it in arcade better than like Area 51, which is probably its closest contemporary. So I'll take Revolution X over that for sure.
Man, Area 51. My parents would get mad at me if they gave me quarters for Cruising USA. Here's the thing. There was a Fuddruckers in Owings Mills. It's a Mexican restaurant now.
I went to that Fuddruckers all the time.
Yeah, so that Fuddruckers had, I want to say it had Cruising USA cabinets, but it also had Area 51, and it also had Rampage. And I would ask my parents for quarters while we were waiting for our food to go play in the arcades, and they would basically tell me like play the drive-in game or the silly game where you get to be the big monkey. And I remember one time I used it to play Area 51 and they were so mad at me for playing like a violent game. Man, I was not supposed to play Area 51.
I'll tell you what, if you want the one arcade game from the 90s that holds up on consoles as well as it did in the arcade, go find a copy of Daytona USA and play.
Oh, absolutely, Daytona. Yeah,
fucking love
100%.
Daytona. Yep. Cam said, so we're doing murders in WWE now. Cam, where were you last week, buddy? We talked about this on the show. I can't wait to see what the Wyatt Six do to Chad Gable tonight on Raw. Oh, also there's a Game 7 Stanley Cup Final going on tonight as well.
Is it game? I thought it was Game 6.
No, it's game 7. Game 7. The Oilers have come all the way back from the death to force a winner take all. Tonight. Oh. So I don't know what the score is, but it started an hour ago. So
it's currently tied 1-1.
Well, there you go. And then
go Oilers.
T-Wash will end it with saying, "What game got you into a music genre? SmackDown versus Raw got me into rock."
I mean, did Tony Hawk's Pro Skater not get every child into ska, at least for a little bit?
Into ska music.
I would say more seriously, I mean, that for sure. Like, if not for the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack, I would not have been listening to like Primus at that age otherwise. I think more recently though, like ultimately Hades got me really into like listening to prog a lot more often because I really like the Hades soundtrack. I'm in a Hades band now, and most of Darren Korb's compositions for Hades are very prog inspired in a lot of ways. So that's a big one for me.
EA Sports games have gotten me into a shitload of fucking bands that I would have never discovered otherwise. Like, I know that like NHL 2004 got me into Jet, got me into Deftones, got me into a lot of other fucking
yeah,
got me into a lot of other groups that I saw.
There's a band I haven't thought about.
I saw Jet open for Oasis when I went to an Oasis concert at Merriweather 1 year. That was a good fucking show.
I wouldn't be mad about that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I'll also say that like I got into modern alternative, playing like the mid 2010s FIFA games, because again, if you want a Eurocentric alternative music smorgasbord to eat from, play any FIFA game and you will find many tracks. And again, they're insidious because as you're navigating menus and stuff like that, you're just bombarded with these same 30 songs over and over again. So through Stockholm syndrome, you will be indoctrinated into being interested into these groups. So yeah, thank you EA Sports for the multitude of bands that you have introduced me to that I may have never found otherwise. So that is going to be it for the questions. Thank you guys again for submitting those. Again, Discord, densepixels.com/fans. Make sure you check out all the other TNP Studio shows. Subscribe to this channel on YouTube. And don't forget to sign up at densepixels.com/premium for premium TNP content for just $5 a month. Look forward, programming note. We are not recording tonight as we normally do. Instead, we will be live broadcasting during the presidential debate part 1 that is happening this Thursday. So me and Jay will be live for that in the Discord. So again, densepixels.com/fans. Lookforwardshow.com/fans to join that Discord. We'll be recapping the week's news at half an hour before that, and then watching two geriatric old men actually have to behave themselves on a debate stage, thanks to the new rules that are being put in place. So that'll be very exciting. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great, and by great I mean awesome, but also great. So that is it for us this week. Thank you all very much for watching and listening, and we will see you all the next time.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.